They thought I was just the maid, but sometimes, silence hides the biggest truths. My name is Clara, and for the past 5 years, I've worked as a maid in a wealthy household. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Every morning, I'd arrive quietly, clean the marble floors, polish the glass doors, and serve tea to people who barely looked me in the eye. The family, the Wilsons, had 3 generations living under one roof. The grandfather, the proud father, and their new daughter-in-law, Amelia. Amelia was beautiful, elegant, charming, and, at first glance, kind. But she had one flaw that I noticed almost immediately. She believed people were defined by their status. On her first week in the house, she said to me, smiling politely, "Clara, please don't come near the main dining table when guests are around. It's not appropriate." I nodded with a soft smile and said, "Of course, ma'am." She didn't mean harm, I told myself. Maybe she was just raised differently. But days turned into weeks, and her behavior grew sharper. She began ordering me around in front of guests, making comments like, "Clara, you missed a spot. People are watching." Or, "You don't need to smile so much. Just do your work properly." And every time, I simply bowed my head and said, "Yes, ma'am." What no one knew, what I never told anyone, was that the Wilson house had once belonged to my family. It was my father's home before life took a cruel turn. He'd lost everything in a business betrayal years ago, and I'd chosen to return quietly, not as the owner's daughter, but as the maid. Why? Because I wanted to see something. I wanted to see how people treated those they thought were beneath them. Amelia, unfortunately, was failing the test miserably. But she wasn't the only one. Even the Wilson men barely noticed me, until the day their world turned upside down. And that day began with a letter I received from the bank. One that would change everything about who I was in this house. That letter didn't just change my life, it revealed a secret that would turn the entire Wilson family against each other. Sometimes people reveal who they are, not with what they say, but with how they treat those they think don't matter. The day I got the letter, the sky was gray, heavy with rain that never seemed to fall. It came from a law firm I hadn't heard from in years. My hands trembled as I read the words. By order of the estate of Mr. Gregory Hale, the remaining shares of the Wilson property are hereby transferred to his rightful heir, Ms. Clara Hale. My father. I read it twice, maybe 3 times, before I could even breathe. The house I had been cleaning for years was now mine. But I didn't smile. I didn't rush to tell anyone. Because I wanted to see how far their pride would go, how deeply their arrogance had blinded them. That same afternoon, Amelia was hosting a small tea party for her friends. I was polishing the glass doors when she snapped her fingers. "Clara, come here, quickly." I hurried over, wiping my hands on my apron. She pointed to a small water stain on the table. "Do you not see this? I told you, presentation matters in this house. Honestly, I don't know how you even got this job." Her friends giggled softly. My face flushed, but I stayed calm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll fix it immediately." As I cleaned the spot, one of her friends leaned over and whispered, "You're too soft on her, Amelia. These people only listen when you raise your voice." Amelia laughed. "Oh, believe me, she knows her place." Those words burned like fire. But I kept my silence. After the guests left, Amelia found me in the kitchen. "By the way," she said, sipping her tea, "Mr. Wilson said you're behind on your pay. I'll talk to him if you want, but honestly, I think he's been too generous already." I looked at her, the woman lecturing me about money, while I quietly owned the floor beneath her shoes. I simply replied, "Thank you, ma'am, but that won't be necessary." As she walked away, I glanced at the letter in my pocket and whispered to myself, "You'll soon learn what generosity truly looks like." That night, I sat in my small room, still pretending to be who they thought I was, and began to plan. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a lesson. One that no amount of money could buy. The next morning, I walked into the Wilson mansion, not as their maid, but as their new landlord. Sometimes, silence is the loudest answer you can give to pride. The next morning, I arrived at the Wilson mansion at my usual time, 7 a.m. sharp. Except this time, I wasn't there as their maid. The lawyer had already handled everything. By law, the house, the land, and even the business linked to it, were now under my name. But I decided to play one final part before revealing the truth. When I entered, Mr. Wilson was in the living room, reading the newspaper. He barely glanced up. "Clara, make sure the guest's room is ready," he said, waving his hand. I nodded, as always. "Of course, sir." Amelia appeared moments later, dressed in silk, her perfume heavy and sweet. "Clara, don't forget to iron my husband's shirts. The last time you missed one, he was late for a meeting." I smiled. "Yes, ma'am." I did everything they asked that morning. Cleaned, cooked, polished, just as I always had. But in my heart, I knew the walls around me no longer belonged to them. Later that afternoon, a black car pulled into the driveway. Mr. Wilson stepped outside, surprised, as two men in suits approached him. One of them was the attorney who had sent me the letter. "Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson," the attorney said. "I'm here on behalf of Ms. Clara Hale, the new legal owner of this property." Mr. Wilson froze. "I'm sorry, what?" Amelia, standing behind him, laughed nervously. "That can't be right. Clara, our maid." The attorney adjusted his glasses and handed over the documents. The previous owner, Mr. Gregory Hale, left this property to his daughter, Ms. Clara Hale. The transfer is now complete. Their faces turned pale. I stepped forward slowly, holding my apron in my hands. "It's true," I said softly. "My father was Gregory Hale." Silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Amelia's eyes darted between me and the lawyer. "So, all this time you..." I nodded. "Yes. I chose to work here because I wanted to see how people treated those who had nothing." Mr. Wilson stammered. "Ms. Hale, we didn't know." I smiled kindly. "And that's the point, sir. You never asked." The lawyer left soon after, leaving them standing speechless in the doorway. I went to my small room for the last time and quietly folded my apron. It was time for them to meet Clara Hale, not their maid but their mirror. That evening I gathered everyone in the living room, not for cleaning, but for truth. I didn't want revenge, I just wanted them to see what respect truly looks like. That evening, I asked everyone to gather in the living room. The rain had started again, tapping softly against the windows. For the first time, it wasn't me waiting to serve them, it was them waiting for me. Mr. Wilson sat stiffly on the couch, his face pale. Amelia stood beside him, arms crossed, her confidence melting into confusion. The grandfather, old and quiet, simply watched me with thoughtful eyes. I stood by the fireplace, still wearing the same plain dress I'd always worn. "Thank you for coming," I began softly. "I know this is strange, hearing that the maid you hired is now the owner of this house. But before anything changes, I need to say something." Amelia looked away, frowning. "You should have told us who you were." I smiled gently. "Would it have made a difference? Would you have treated me better?" Her lips parted, but no words came. "You see," I continued, "I didn't hide because I wanted to trick anyone. I just wanted to understand how people treat others when they have nothing to gain." The grandfather leaned forward slowly. "And what did you find, my dear?" I took a breath. "I found that kindness is rare, and pride is loud." The room was silent. The only sound was the rain outside. I cleaned this house for years, and not once did anyone here ask if I was okay, or if I needed water, or if I was tired. But that's all right, because it taught me something valuable. I looked directly at Amelia. People don't respect you because of your title. They respect you for your heart. She looked down, her hands trembling. "You once told me to stay out of sight during your parties," I said softly. "But the truth is, Amelia, your guests saw me more clearly than they ever saw you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded. "I know." Then I turned to Mr. Wilson. "Don't worry, sir. I'm not throwing anyone out. This house has seen enough pride already. What it needs now is peace." He swallowed hard and whispered, "You're a better person than any of us, Ms. Hale." I smiled. Not better, just reminded. That night, I went to bed in the same small room, by choice, not by circumstance. Because sometimes, humility isn't about where you sleep. It's about how you treat people when they wake up. The next morning, something happened I didn't expect. Amelia came to my door in tears, asking for forgiveness. The same person who once gave me orders was now standing at my door, asking for forgiveness. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The rain had stopped. The air outside smelled like fresh soil and quiet beginnings. I was sweeping the hallway when I heard a soft knock on my door. When I opened it, I froze. It was Amelia, her eyes swollen, her makeup gone, her voice trembling. "Clara, may I come in?" I stepped aside silently. She sat down on the small chair in my simple room, her fingers twisting nervously. "I didn't sleep all night," she said. "I kept thinking about everything you said yesterday. And you were right." Her voice cracked. "I treated you terribly. I thought being rich meant being better. But now I see. I was the poor one." I didn't interrupt her. I just listened, the same way I always had. She looked around my room, the plain bed, the tiny window, the shelf with old books and photographs. "You lived here, quietly, for years. And you still smiled. You still cared." Her words trembled, but her eyes were clear. "I was cruel to the kindest person in this house. I'm so sorry." I felt tears sting my eyes. I placed a hand gently over hers and said softly, "It takes strength to admit when you're wrong, Amelia. I forgive you." She broke down crying, and I held her, like a mother would hold a daughter. After a while, she whispered, "Please don't sell the house. This place, it's your family's legacy. I'll make sure it becomes a home again." I smiled. I never planned to sell it. I just wanted it to finally be filled with kindness. That day, Amelia helped me prepare breakfast, something she had never done before. When the Wilson family came to the table, they saw her serving tea with a soft smile, calling me Miss Clara with respect. Even Mr. Wilson looked amazed. "Well," he said slowly, "I guess our family still has a lot to learn." I laughed softly. Don't we all? The rest of the day was quiet, almost peaceful. But deep inside, I knew Amelia's change wasn't just guilt. It was growth. And I realized something too: sometimes, people aren't bad, they're just untested by humility. Weeks later, the house that once echoed with pride became a place of laughter, until a stranger arrived, revealing one final secret about my father. Just when I thought the story had ended, life sent someone to remind me that forgiveness is inherited too. It was a quiet afternoon, a few weeks after everything had changed. Amelia had become almost unrecognizable, polite, helpful, kind. She treated the staff with warmth and had even convinced Mr. Wilson to raise their wages. The house finally felt alive again, not because of wealth, but because of love. Then, one afternoon, there was a knock at the gate. A man stood there, grey hair, worn jacket, holding a small envelope. "Are you Ms. Clara Hale?" he asked softly. "Yes," I replied. "How can I help you?" He smiled faintly. "I used to work for your father. Before everything happened." I invited him in, poured him tea, and listened. His name was Mr. Jacobs, an old accountant who had been with my father until the end. He reached into his pocket and took out a folded letter, yellowed with age. "Your father asked me to give you this, when I found you again." My hands trembled as I opened it. The handwriting was familiar, firm, elegant, the way he used to sign business papers. "My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, then fate has led you back to the place that once broke us. But I want you to remember, never let bitterness build where love once lived. People will hurt you. Some will forget your kindness. But don't stop being kind. That's the only inheritance worth leaving behind. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I looked at Mr. Jacobs, and he nodded gently. Your father forgave the people who ruined him, Clara. He wanted you to do the same. I closed the letter and smiled through tears. Then I think I finally understand what he meant. That evening, I called everyone into the living room again. Not for confrontation, but for peace. This house isn't mine alone, I told them. It's for everyone who's learned something here. My father lost it because of betrayal, but I regained it through forgiveness. Amelia looked at me, eyes full of gratitude. You've taught me more in a few weeks than I've learned in my whole life. I smiled. That's not me, dear. That's Grace. The house grew quiet, the air warm with something that hadn't lived there in years, understanding. But before I could finally move on, Amelia did something that proved her change was real, something that honored my father's memory forever. In the same house where I once served in silence, love finally spoke louder than pride. A few days after reading my father's letter, I decided it was time to honor him properly. I called a small gathering at the house, not for business or formality, but to celebrate a new beginning. The Wilson family was there, along with the staff, the neighbors, and even Mr. Jacobs. Everyone looked curious. Amelia came forward, holding something in her hands, a small wooden plaque wrapped in cloth. Before we begin, she said, I have something to share. Her voice trembled, but she continued bravely. When I first came here, I thought money made people valuable. I thought humility was weakness. But Clara, she looked at me with tears in her eyes, you showed me that real strength is kindness, and real wealth is compassion. She unfolded the cloth and revealed the plaque. It read, The Hale Home, where love serves before it leads. Gasps filled the room. Even Mr. Wilson wiped his eyes. Amelia turned toward me and whispered, I've decided to start a charity in your father's name, to help working women like you once helped this family. I was speechless. For the first time, I felt my father's presence in the air, not through the walls of the house, but through the hearts inside it. I hugged Amelia, tears streaming down both our faces. You've made him proud, I whispered. Later, as everyone laughed and shared stories, I stepped outside. The house glowed softly under the evening sun, no longer a place of pride or pain, but of peace. I thought about my father's letter again. Don't stop being kind. That simple line had changed everything. And I realized, we all wear invisible uniforms in life. Some make us look powerful, others make us look small. But what truly matters is how we treat people when no one is watching. I smiled, looking at the home I'd once cleaned and now owned. Not because of money, but because of the love that finally filled its rooms. They called me the maid no one noticed, but I became the reminder everyone needed. In the end, this isn't a story about status. It's about seeing hearts, not clothes. Kindness, not class. Because one day, the people we overlook may be the very ones holding our greatest lessons. Red Heart.